I don't know about you, but that mixing of languages always does my head in. You know, like I speak French and English, but like, and then the Arabic in between, like every third word is like it just tries to mess with me or something. It's great. It's like, yeah. So I hope you heard a lot more about the Maktub story right now. I wanted to talk about one product. A few people asked me in the break, what does Yahoo have a unique product? And which is quite a fun question to ask, really, because a lot of products out there are in competition, and a lot of companies do the same things. And Yahoo has one thing that when it came out, I just didn't believe it because I'm a developer, and we always like, when people tell us like, this is great, the first thing we say like, nah, really, probably I can code it better. And I couldn't in this case, and I'm actually quite impressed with what it does. But let me talk a bit about what I see the web is about. The web to me is not interfaces, it's not websites, it's not code, it's actually data. Data, information that we put out on the web, information that is there in any format that we can think of, that we actually use then and build interfaces on top of it. And that's really fast again. And if you look at, for example, programmable web, a lot of companies realize that there's 2,375 APIs available for you to play with. So this is information that companies put on the web for you to build your own stuff with. Because those companies have understood the same way that Yahoo has. If you give out information to people, they build solutions that you haven't thought of. And that actually makes a lot of sense, because that way you realize like there's markets that are untapped, there are use cases that make a lot of sense that I never ever knew about, and actually it's innovating from the outside in, it's innovating through you to us, and we find what you're doing with our stuff, and we find a lot of people that we hire by seeing what they do with our technologies. And also, that makes no sense, because when I hire a person like that, he's already interested and he already has a lot of knowledge, rather than having to hire somebody from university and teaching them everything from one to the other. So you have new APIs coming out there every day, and when you go through the APIs and you go through the API directory, you find a lot of stuff that is pretty sweet, but also like in use cases here, Google Maps is the most used API because people want to show maps. Flickr is 5% still in there. Facebook is huge. Twitter is huge. YouTube is huge. And if you go through the APIs and actually try to use them, then you start actually getting into the problem that developers don't like to do, and that is reading. If I want to start writing some code, if I want to get your information and do something cool with it, the last thing I want to do is print out a documentation like that and start typing and understanding what you've been doing. And the other problem with APIs is that a lot of APIs documentation has been written by developers, and we're bad at documenting because we already know it. Like, we just assume that everybody knows what we're knowing, and the documentation is like, read the manual. Or like go to like just rebrand your own Linux kernel and go from there. Like simple things like that. And that's why I'm got rather tired of having to read up on APIs. So let's go for example for the Twitter API. No, I don't want to track it. What is it? code.twitter.com. Nah, I don't want to log in. And I just basically did not want to have that anymore. I wanted to use the information. And this is why we have the same problem in Yahoo. We have over 110 internal APIs. Everything we build on top of an API. The reason is that we're becoming totally independent of interface and backend. So if we want to change the backend of the system, all we have to do is spit out the same API code or the API data, and if we want to put a new interface on top of it, we just take the API data. So, for example, Yahoo Answers was originally written in PHP, later on we shifted it to Java. We didn't have to do much, because everything was built on top of the API, instead of just having PHP with database calls in between. This stuff will never scale. So if you just go through a layer in between that caches your information, puts the information out, you can scale to anything you want. And we're offline again. Or is it that? Okay. long question answered. What we have here is actually YQL. So we realized that for 10 years we've been building APIs. And for 10 years we've been bad at documenting them. So if you wanted to actually use an internal API, you had to find the person that wrote it, who probably wasn't in the company anymore, who had some documentation page somewhere in a wonderful language that is understood on his planet, but not on our planet. And we basically waste a lot of time sitting in meeting rooms talking to each other about our own APIs. Well, in reality, what we wanted to do is just get the data back. So if you wanted to do a search on yahoo.com, for example, you go to yahoo.com, you type in a search term, or you can use a syntax like, say, SQL to do the same thing. And this is what YQL allows you to do. So you can say select star from search web where text equals Jordan. And what that one does, under the hood, is actually finds the API for you. So search.web actually, and you got an error message here, which is good as well. Let me come back to that. Search.web points to an API that gives me that data back. So if that API ever changes, I don't need to know. I just basically call a data table. And that way we can become much more flexible, because we can shift that around to different servers, we can change the API to other providers, and so on and so forth. We're abstracting away the problem of having to know every single API before we start using it by putting it into table names like that. And everything we build in Yahoo right now, every new stuff that comes out is built on top of this platform. So we're opening this platform out to the world, so you can actually play with it as well, because we want to make that work for ourselves really, really well. This is the console of YQL. You don't need the console, but it makes your life so much easier to just play with the system up front. I'm going to show you later on that YQL in itself is a data endpoint. So all you need to do is actually send your SQL-style query to that data endpoint to get the information back. So, as you see, when you do something wrong, you get an error message here that tells you what went wrong. And this is written in English, not like Internet Explorer error messages that tell you undefined is not defined, or null is not an object, and other very, very useful things. Instead, you actually hear right now here, cannot find required keys where clause is text, expected required keys is query. So I know now that text was wrong and it has to be queried. So that one now goes to the Yahoo Search API and gives me the information back. So I now get no information back. That's awesome. What? Dun dun dun. Oh, splendid. Okay, under the hood, what it does, it actually finds the data call for you here and gives it the information back. So I can actually copy and paste that out and see if there's a problem with the endpoint right now, and there's a bad request going on here. So that's why that one is not working right now. But we fix it and it's going to be up soon again. So let's use our Yahoo Answers instead. Yahoo Answers will be up because I wrote that API. That's going to be embarrassing if it's not. So I can say select star from answer search where query equals Jordan. Let's see what that one does. Dun, dun, dun. There you go. Jordan. Do you think Jordan changes too much? Not really. So you get all this information back, all the XML information that we have in Yahoo Answers at the moment. What if you don't want that data? That's another big problem with APIs. API gives you all the information and the kitchen sink. So if you take, for example, the Twitter API, so Twitter search, for example, gives you all kind of information back, and then you get it in different formats, and it gives you lots and lots of search that you don't know, for Christ's sake. Okay, Twitter is over capacity again. Good. So I get all this information here that I don't want. I get like a subject, a content, I get a timestamp, a link, category. So normally you get this information back from Twitter, from Google, from Flickr, from every system that you do, and then you write your own parser. You run an XML parser, you use regular expressions, you use a library to filter that down. But why would you need all this information? If you build a mobile platform, for example, you don't want to download 400K of XML to show 2 lines of text. So what you can do in YQL with that language that we have here is actually you can filter it down to only what you want to need. So say, for example, I only want to have the subject of each of these questions, and instead of saying select star, I actually do select subject. And then all the questions that I'm getting are actually filtered down to only the subject, and the rest of the information is taken away already for me on the server of YQL. So I filter it down to only the information that I need to have right now, which is very, very powerful if you need just information quickly on a small mobile phone and low connection. You can even limit it. You can say, only give me 2 of those to get down to the lowest level of information that you need. So now I get only 2 questions here. You can take this information and mix and match it with any other API out there. So if you go through the data tables here, down here, you see that this is where all the information came from. You have social, you've got answers, you've got avatars, fantasy sport, Flickr, geo, local, maps, Memi, music, my blog log, and so on and so forth. So all of these systems are there. So search, let's try this up again. So all you have to do is go down on these data tables, click on them, and then you already get an explanation how you would use the system. This is replacing the documentation that I talked about. You know, instead of having to read through the whole documentation, you just start clicking on it and you get information back, or in this case you still don't. So you can use these systems to do all kind of clever stuff. So say, for example, I want to have photos of Jordan. I say, select star from, where the photos come from. Let's look down there and look at Flickr. Okay, Flickr. We've got lots and lots of API calls. So groups, info, people, Flickr photos, info, Flickr photo search. Let's try that one out. Flickr photo search where hasgeo is true and text is San Francisco. Don't know what hasgeo is true is, don't care. Delete it, say text instead of San Francisco, I say text equals Jordan. Now, problem there, Jordan is also a pop star in England, and I don't want to show her photos. You really don't want to see them. So I have to find out, like, how do I make sure that these photos are really from Jordan? So the data comes back as XML, and it gives you photos with, like, the farm ID, the owner, the secret, like all the information that a Flickr photo needs. If you don't want to understand all of that, you can also go through another system. You can say, okay, how about you just give me the photo sizes? So instead of getting all the information, all I want to have is the photo ID. And let's do that again. And then you get only the ID of that photo back, because that's all I'm interested in this case. And then I want to have all the URLs where I could get these photos from. And you can do that with the photo sizes here. So I can say select star from Flickr photos sizes where photo ID in select the other statement. So, and under the hood, as you see, it called the Flickr API a lot of times. Still, it didn't take a lot of time. If it came from your server every single time going over to America, it would be a really slow interface. As the YQL server itself is on the back network of the internet, and that's not an exaggeration, it really is. It's really, really fast in this. So now, I get all the different sizes. So I have all these sources here, and I've got labels here. So I can say if I want to have the thumbnail photos, all the thumbnail photos, and the sources, I can say instead of select star, I can say select source from the photo, and label equals thumbnail. So that one now gives me only the thumbnail photos and the sources of them. So instead of having to read